Hello and welcome back to All for United. More specifically, welcome back to our tactical preview ahead of the West Ham versus Manchester United game. Got a brilliant panel lined up for you. A surprise guest for you as well. I'm sure it'll go down very well in the comments. Stay tuned. We're going to go through everything you need to know about the West Ham game, how we can improve on midweek's disappointment, and much more. So I'll see you after this.
Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from Passionate Reds, only on All for United.
There we have it. The usual suspects plus a surprise Abdul appearance never goes unappreciated. So, boys, it's brilliant to have you. Really looking forward to this show. I'll just a special request of Mark. I'll move you around a little bit. We're looking ahead to the West Ham game. Obviously, a very big game given recent circumstances. It's going to be a massive game to get us back on the ball. So I'll come to you first, Stu. We'll start in the past. Obviously, disappointment at midweek. We're not here to get angry or to voice any negativity. This is more constructive than anything. But what was one specific issue you picked out from that game, and how do you think we overcome it against West Ham?
Well, funny enough, I wasn't particularly angry after the game, as I was on with Mark, and in football it happens that there are teams that can frustrate. There are teams that just turn up on the night, and I think it was one of those games. I think from Ollie's point of view, he can't be absolved of any issues because clearly there was some. The Wan-Bissaka sending off, for example, I would have brought on Varane at that point. I would have kept a bit of continuity, moved Lindelof out to right back until half time. So I'd have tried not to disrupt the team or tried to disrupt it as little as possible. And then I would have kept. You could then either argue you remove Lindelof and bring Dalot on or not. I mean, that's just a point to argue. But what I would have done, and I did tweet actually, that I thought Ollie did the right thing by going to a back three. And then the more I thought about it, the more I changed my mind before we kind of kicked off. Because I would have kept with continuity. And in football, sometimes you've got to stay with what you know rather than change drastically. And so I would have kept on Van der Beek, and I would have kept on Fred. And I would have run that for about 15 to 20 minutes in the second half just to see where the land lay. And then you can make a bit more of an informed decision rather than a knee-jerk decision. And I think we were victims of a knee-jerk decision with the substitutions and where we were. And so I think from that point of view, I'm pretty sure the coaches, the managerial staff, and the players would have had a chat about it. And let's just see what happens on Sunday. But you know what? We've still got 5 games left in the Champions League. We're not out. We're nowhere near out of it. Villarreal and Atalanta drew, didn't they, to a piece? So, the group's there to be taken. We've got to get 10 points, 12 points max. And I think we've got the capabilities of doing it. And so from that point of view, yeah, it was. I'm always disappointed to lose, but I try and look at it pragmatically, and that's my pragmatic view.
I was actually really positive and uplifting from you to say what you usually like to do. So fair play for that. But Charlie, we'll talk more about the decision to switch to a 5 at the back. Then, obviously, we don't want to do another review of the show, but it's obviously something that could be an option. Towards the latter end of the season if we need a change in system. Has this proven to you that a 5 at the back maybe doesn't work for United?
No. This is totally different circumstances than we would usually use a 5 at the back. It was sort of a 5. Well, it was a sort of a 5-3-1 for large parts, wasn't it? It's a totally different situation, because if we were to go to a 5 at the back or whatever, it wouldn't be so much a 5. It would be more of a 3, I think. With 2 more attacking wing backs. But I don't think during the game, I don't think the subs, for me, the actual subs were not the problem. It was more the mentality that we had. I just thought that we dropped a bit too early. And I just think that we took off Van der Beek, which I thought was a problem. But I don't think the personnel was the issue. I think it was more how deep we dropped and sort of the lack of outlet that we had up top. But yeah, it was obviously a very, very poor result. I don't think we were playing particularly well before the red card. I think we were playing okay. We obviously had 2 shots, and they were the only 2 shots we had with Ronaldo. I think we were playing okay, decently well, nothing special. I think young boys were playing okay. They had a couple of attacks on us. They were building some pressure, but it wasn't anything particularly. We weren't creating tons of chances, like has been a bit of an issue for us. But yeah, the 5 at the back was totally different circumstances. It's actually a formation I quite like, and it's actually a formation that I think would suit Matic and Pogba or Matic and Van der Beek more than it would a four behind them. And I think it's definitely something we can look into. But yeah, it wasn't a good game, and there are some question marks over Wan-Bissaka. I have been thinking it for a little while with Wan-Bissaka. I do think if Manchester United, I think Abdul said this before as well, if Manchester United are to challenge for a title, is Aaron Wan-Bissaka good enough sort of going forward? And I'm not so sure. I think Sancho's game's a little bit limited when Wan-Bissaka, and I know they've only just started, and I know they've got a long time to go and to develop. But I just think Wan-Bissaka, I think something I took from the game, his poor control led to the red card. So it cost us the game, but we could talk about that later, I suppose.
Suppose we can, yeah. It's a good point. It's a very good point. Well, Abdul, as I said, surprise guest. I think we didn't know you were coming on until 5 minutes ago, so I appreciate you being here. But
Yeah,
very interested to see you. Very interested to see your thoughts on Tuesday, because obviously we've not had the chance to speak to you since then.
Yeah.
It was obviously a poor result, but I think the more worrying thing was it was a pretty poor performance as well. So what did you make of it?
Yeah, I think before the red card we were in control, but that doesn't mean we were playing well. Like, had Aaron Wan-Bissaka stayed on the pitch, we win this 100%. But it wouldn't have been, like Charlie was saying, a good performance. I'll just put it that way. It would have been just, we have the quality, we just went there, got the job done, and left, kind of thing. That's how it would have went down. But because of what happened, and because Aaron Wan-Bissaka got sent off, the things that you want to see is how dominant are you going to be with a man down, and how defensively solid you're going to be with a man down. Now, off the ball, we were okay for most of the match. Like, the mistake Jesse does happens once, twice in a lifetime mistake. It's not something you see often. So in my mind, apart from that mistake, we draw this game. But on the ball, we were so poor. We were so bad after that red card. And this is where the substitutions didn't help. Like, it just started getting worse and worse and worse with every substitution. I don't mind bringing on Dalot for Sancho. That wasn't a problem for me. The 3 at the back, I thought about it quite a lot. And then I heard Ollie's post-match press conference, and he's saying, we knew they were going to go to crosses, so we just wanted another head in there to clear anything coming in, which is fine. It's okay. But the problem is, because you lost one more attacker and you only have Ronaldo up there on his own, which, if you guys recall, I don't know if I said it to you guys or who I was said it to, Ronaldo out of possession doesn't offer you much at all. Like, he's just like Rashford, for example. You're just going to rely on runs in behind and with his speed. That's all you're going to get from Ronaldo, or, for example, if it was a Rashford in his place. So the moment you become less dominant on the ball, Ronaldo's useless. So for me, I would have brought on Matic and Martial, just so that you keep the possession, even for a little bit, just to take the sting out of young boys, so that they don't feel like they're gaining more momentum, more rhythm in their game. And this is where the substitution started becoming confusing. And then Ollie ended it all with taking Fred out for Martial, which didn't. You were like, okay, which way are you trying to go? Are you trying to hold on to a draw, or are you trying to win it? Like your ideas are not clear. That's it felt like all the substitutions and all the changes were a panic. Like, let's solve it this way, let's try to grab it from this way, let's try to grab it from that way, instead of, guys, when we go a man down, this is how we're going to approach the game. And it was a preset plan. So this whole situation brought me to Rennie Malstein's book. I read it, and he was talking about how Sir Alex Ferguson and him sat down and discussed what they would do if they get a man sent down in the Champions League. And they had a lot of situational strategies. So they would actually play the team 11 versus 10 and put pressure on them to see how they're going to cope. And it just felt like I didn't get angry. I actually thought that the way the game ended was funny. I just laughed at Jesse's mistake. But it's just put more doubt on what are we doing, in the training sessions and like, what are we doing with the coaches? Okay, you want to have a little bit more freedom up top and you want the players to do what they're good at. Sure, I have no problem with that. Sir Alex was like that. And a lot of other managers. I'm not just comparing to Sir Alex. But you have to be better on the ball. And you have to have plan to certain situations that are going to happen on the pitch, because football is very unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. So you have to prepare yourself as much as possible. So this is where I felt a little bit, I wanted to give Ollie a little bit of stick that day, more than the actual players. And it's not because I don't like Ollie. You guys all know that I love Ollie and I wish him all the success, but he deserved a little bit more stick that day.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I like you. I'm a massive Ollie fan, but I thought on Tuesday he definitely deserved probably more stick than he got. I thought it was a really, really poor game from him personally. But Mark, I'll come to you last as requested. I'll ask you a similar question to Stu. Obviously, the circumstances were very bizarre in the fact that we're not really used to going a man down, so that it's not a true reflection of a usual United game. But was there anything outside of that sort of scope that worried you that we could improve on against West Ham?
Yeah, I haven't really got too much more to add to what Stu said in answer to that question, to be honest with you. I think there was a lot of panicking. As you said, we haven't had too many sendings off during Ollie's reign, and I think that's potentially something that needs to be worked on. It's difficult, isn't it? It's very easy for us to sit here and say that, we should have done this. And I absolutely agree with Abdul that Ollie does probably need to take a lot more of the blame on that particular occasion. But whether he made the right substitutions is, we'll have to see next time, see how they deal with it next time. We'll make a comparison then, yeah. Very disappointing night. You're going to get these. I tweeted today that it is disappointing, but it's infuriating to see the amount of people that very quickly jump on the negative side of things. These things do happen. Sir Alex had exactly the same issues on many occasions. So it's all about being pragmatic and learning from these mistakes and experiences and trying to better them next time.
If I can add just a small thing, I also think that us being still in the fifth game of the season, coming after international breaks, and I'm not giving all the excuses, but I think it does play a role that we're just 5 games in with new signings, played a bit on it, because I went back and I watched the PSG game because I wanted to make a comparison where Fred got sent off. We were more dominant than PSG with 10 men against PSG, not Young Boys, with 10 men than the showing we saw last 2 days ago. So 10 men against PSG in the Champions League versus 10 men against Young Boys in the Champions League. And we were so much better. But the difference is we were so well into the season and we had the rhythm already. Players had already clicked, had already played with each other fairly enough amount. So I would give that also, another, not an excuse, but a factor that played into all of it as well.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's a great point. Well, listen, we'll move ahead to the West Ham game then. Obviously, that's the whole purpose of the video. I wanted to talk about, I'll bring this comment up because it's a very good point. It's going to be a difficult task against West Ham. Sorry, I think I'm breaking up a little bit, but it always seems to be whenever we play West Ham, they're a very compact defensive side, very hard to break down. So I'll come to you first, Stu. How do we break West Ham down, whether that's personnel or tactics or what? What's our best approach?
Look, I like West Ham. I quite like what Moyes has done. You're absolutely right, actually. They're a very compact, very disciplined unit. And it makes it very difficult when you've got a compact, disciplined unit to find space and exploit space at the back. And they don't play a low block in particular, but they are quite happy for the opposition to have the ball because their turnover is very, very good. They're very, very quick with their turnover, and they're very, very dangerous with their turnover. So I do like the way that West Ham play. And for us, Ollie's got to approach it not at a win at all costs mentality, which appears to be the way that Twitter's saying, because not many people go to West Ham and currently and win. I mean, they've scored four goals twice in the league already. I think they've only been shut out once. That was against Southampton. And we know that Southampton are a decent outfit. So for us, I think that we've got to be more concentrated on the ball than what we were on Tuesday. I think Abdel and Mark are right. We weren't very concentrated on the ball when we had it. We didn't believe in ourselves on Tuesday night that 10 men could go and win the game. It's a massive issue, that is. And from a personal point of view, when you're on the pitch and you're engrossed in the game, you've got to be communicating all the time. You've got to be talking to people. And there's 2 or 3 occasions in the second half where sometimes against young boys where you've really got to put yourself about a bit and almost put a reducer in, as I call it. You've got to disrupt their play. So for us, we must disrupt Southampton. Okay, we must get Bruno on the ball. We must get Pogba playing. I think if we put Pogba out on the left against West Ham, I said Southampton, didn't I? Sorry, lads. Against West Ham, I think it'll be a loss. We need to bring Pogba into the middle with Bruno. We need to give Pogba that free role, and then he'll be able to feed Ronaldo better. So the problem we'll have is by bringing Pogba in and by bringing Bruno in to play as 2-8, so to speak, what he does with our favourite position that we talk about week in, week out, central midfield. If McTominay's available, he would be the preferred starter, I think, with his defensive nous and his energy. But I'll go back to Van der Beek. I thought Van der Beek had a really solid game. He didn't set the world alight for the first half on Tuesday, but he was solid. Okay, gave the ball away a couple of times, but he was trying to be progressive. But when he gets the ball, he has a calmness. And you need a calmness because, West Ham, you know what Declan Rice is like. He's a headless fucking chicken. He's going to be at you constantly. Bang, 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 bang. And you need a calmness on it. So whether or not it's too early for McTominay after his injury, I don't know what his fitness is like. I don't know. But I think he would get my shout. And then you've got to shove Sancho right back in and probably Martial maybe or Greenwood. I would actually play Sancho on the left rather than the right. I bring in Greenwood on the right, Sancho on the left, and Ronaldo again. And the thing about Ronaldo is people will say, oh, he's in the red zone already. Look, if anyone's going to get you a goal, just take Cavani out of the equation for the moment. You get one shot on Sunday, you need it to land to Ronaldo because 9 out of 10 times he's going to put it in the back of the net. We know that Cavani needs 2 or 3, and we know, sometimes Greenwood can be that clinical, but at the minute, with his age, with his inexperience, he tends to dilly-dally a little bit on the ball. He wouldn't have scored the young boys' goal because he has got a right peg, but he hasn't got that nous yet to do that. So I'm hoping that if we play Sancho on the left, Greenwood on the right, single central midfield. I'm not going to use the word pivot because it winds me up, and play Pogba in a more free role alongside Fernandes. And I think the back four picks itself. Now, what I think you could do on this occasion, depending on Ollie's mindset, my mindset would be to Wan-Bissaka to get him out there and play him. That would be my mindset. But I'm wondering whether or not he'll take him out of the equation. He's not been great to start the season. He's got personal issues, we know, with his court appearances, etc. So it could well be that Ollie brings in Dalot. Personally, I wouldn't. I'd literally pick him up and I'd chuck him out on that pitch and make him fucking. You've got to play your way back into form, and this kid has got to do it. His ban isn't domestic; it's European. So Dalot knows he's going to be playing on those three. So Ollie may consider, because he knows he's got to play Dalot, he may play. In Europe, he may play Dalot at the weekend. But no, we've got to be progressive. We've got to be more aggressive. We've got to have more belief in ourselves. Now, I'm hoping that Ollie and the coaching staff have tried to do that. I don't want to talk too much about coaching, because Charlie will tell you it winds me up big time when people talk about lack of coaching. And I'm glad Abdel mentioned Jesse Lingard. It's just one of those errors. Everybody's done it on a pitch. I've done it myself. Abdel's probably done it. We've all done it on a football pitch. It happens. You move on. But I was reading a few bits and pieces on Twitter. I'm blaming Ollie for Lingard. Why? Because Ollie put Lingard on the pitch. What a fucking moronic answer that is. And this is the thing about our fan base.
Because he plays him in midfield, the position he usually plays in.
No, I know. Well, that's it, innit? But I mean, look, if Ronaldo had made that mistake, or Fernandes had made that mistake, what would have been the outcry? There wouldn't have been any outcry. It happens, and this is the problem with our fan base right now. So look, it's going to be a really, really tough game. But they played today, didn't they? I don't know if they're playing now, but they played today in the Europa League. So what they won, did they? 2-0?
Yeah. They won 2-0, yeah.
All right. So look, we've had an extra days because of our travelling time. We've had an extra day's rest. But we've just got to go in there. We've got to be brave. And I'm hoping that Ollie's brave with his team. I'm hoping that the players are brave on the day and want to take the ball and don't want to shy away from it. Because I thought at times we shied away from the ball on Tuesday evening. I don't want us to do that. So, yeah, that's what I think.
Certainly. It's a very good point. I completely agree. Well, listen, Charlie, we'll speak more about West Ham as a team then. I think the big news around them is that the key man this season, Mikel Antonio, is going to be suspended. Yeah, he got himself banned in the last minute of the game. He's a bit of an idiot. But I'll ask you sort of a two-part question. One, how big of a miss will he be to West Ham? And two, who's the danger man after him? Who will come in and sort of take his place as the player that United need to watch out for?
Souček.
Well, obviously, Antonio is a massive player for West Ham. I think obviously we all know Antonio's strong. We all know he holds the ball up. We all know he runs the channels. But actually, his technical ability goes a little bit underrated. He's actually a very, very good technical. He's gone from a right back to a right winger to a striker. I mean, if you can do that, it just shows how much ability you've got. It's just incredible, really. Those three different positions are completely different. And his career, I think he's scored. I don't know how. I think he's West Ham's all-time goal scorer now, or something in the Premier League. I think that's right. It's just incredible. It's an incredible stat, really. For no disrespect to him, for a player 2 or 3 years ago that everybody would sort of go, oh, average player. No, I don't really rate him much. But he's been fantastic for them. I think Yarmolenko often plays in that position if Antonio doesn't play. I'm not aware whether West Ham have signed any new strikers, but I think Yarmolenko normally plays as that sort of false nine if Antonio's not fit. But he may well use Ben Rama there. You could use Fornals there. They could use any of those that are very, very creative players. But it's probably not going to be that sort of so much physical outlet. It's probably going to be more of a technical player in that position. But yeah, for Sunday, I think West Ham played 48 hours after us. So we've got no excuses. We've got to go to Sunday and take the game to them. In my opinion, we've played 5 games this season. I think one game we've played very, very well. I think one game we've played decently well, and then the other 3 for me have been average to poor performances. I think we've got to improve that massively. I just think I think if we go back on Man United performances last season, there's actually more often than not they're sort of average to grinded out wins. There's never a consistent run of fantastic performances, and that is my worry. Particular away from home. If you look at the 2 games with Southampton, Wolves, Young Boys, there've been 3 sort of off performances, and I worry it's going to happen again Sunday. I just think with the West Ham fans in the stadium, everybody behind them, I think we've just got to improve the way we start away games in particular. Wolves, let's be honest, Wolves, come on, we could have been 3 or 4 down. I mean, we were that poor. And I know we ended up winning, and we obviously take it and we're happy with it, but we really have got to turn up and perform better. That is my big worry with us at the moment. We're top of the league, of course we are. We need to obviously sustain that. But my big worry is more often than not, I come away from watching Man United and thinking, okay, we scored 4 goals. We actually didn't play that well. And the issue is when we start coming against better sides, that's not going to be acceptable because we're not going to score those 4 goals. We're going to come up against players that are going to take Bruno out of the game, take Pogba out of the game. They're going to mark, top class centre halves, Van Dijk up against Ronaldo, Diaz and Stones. We're not going to get that many chances. And we need to make those chances. I think Abdul said earlier about what's going on the training ground. Stu knows I've been an advocate of the coaching for a while, for months and months. I've been saying it for months and months, and I'm a bit fed up of saying it. And I still stand by my word. I still don't think our coaches are good enough. But we'll see whether that sort of bears whether that comes true at the end of the season. But I do think we've got to improve, particularly our build-up play. I don't think it's a player issue for build-up. I just think our build-up play is generally quite poor. And I just think that does need to improve. But we're definitely the favourites for Sunday. And we've had 48 hours extra rest, and we've got no excuse. But I just think I know what's going to happen already. We'll turn the first half. We'll play okay. We might find ourselves 1-0 down, and we'll probably end up winning 2 or 3-1. But what we've got to realise is this has got to improve, and it's got to improve very, very quickly. Because when we go into that period of games against Leicester, Everton, City, Tottenham, Arsenal, even Arsenal, we laugh about Arsenal, but we know we've got a terrible record against them. It's going to be a tough game still. And that run that we've got of sort of 10 games in a row where we've got playing very, very good sides. If we don't perform well in those games, you won't get results. You won't get the results. Whereas if you don't perform well against inferior teams, you will get results because of the better quality of player. So we've got to perform better on Sunday. That's what I'm looking for, performance.
It's a very good point. I think we're all sort of waiting for that real electric performance to really kickstart us. I think that we've probably got the players now to do so. Interesting you mentioned coaching. I think we're actually going to talk about that on Timeline Talk tomorrow. So all the watchers, stay tuned for that. Should be a good episode. But Abdul, I'm excited to hear what you think on this because from what you've seen of West Ham, just wanted to know what you think their main strengths are and how United can combat them.
I honestly only watched their game against Leicester where they pummeled them 4-1. But because of the record, their danger man is, like everybody said, is Antonio, really, Mikel Antonio, because the way his meteoric rise after he hit 30 is a shock to so many people, especially in the striker position, because like before that, when he was still 29, 28, nobody would have given him any, like no one would have worried about him really, but the way he's developed his game, even his touch, everything has improved in him, and his awareness and sense in the box. But since he's not playing, then that cuts West Ham's dangers in half, really, because they don't have anyone as good as him right now. Like they do have some white players that are good. They have Fornales, they have Benrahma, they have I think Lanzini or Dawson or something like his name. I forgot his name. Greg Dawson, something like that, right? They're good from wide, but then again, if you don't have the guy in the middle to receive and finish those chances, then might as well be useless, really. From what I noticed with them, at least last season under Moyes, whenever they came up against us specifically, they really parked it heavy, like completely, even more than what they played against City, more than they played against other teams, which I found weird. I don't know why, but I guess it just happened. So I'm guessing the same, maybe because every time we played them, Mikel Antonio had an injury for some reason. So that's probably the thinking why we'll just be deep. If we get a chance on the counter, we'll just do that. Or a set piece with Souček, coming in and trying to get a set piece. So I'm expecting a grind out, really. I'm really expecting we'll work our asses off to just get one goal, because they're good defensively. If they want to shut you out, they will shut you out. Of course, with the addition of Cristiano, with the addition of Cavani, if Cavani plays, I don't think he will, but we have Cristiano, then that makes it a bit more easier. We have an aerial threat. So yeah, that's how I think the game will go. We'll have most of the possession. They'll be sitting back. We'll try to find any angle to get a goal, and maybe we'll get one, and it will end at 1-0. Or if the game changes and they try to play us the way they played us last season at their venue, so when we play them away, they will be very open on the counter, and we're good at that. So we'll pick them apart easy. And I think that's why Moyes, the 2 times he played us after this, completely shut up shop. And he's like, no, I'm not going to give these guys any space. So we'll see. If they try to play expansive, we can pick them apart. If they didn't, and they stayed back for most of the game, then it's going to be an ugly 1-0 win. When it comes to us, though, on what we do and what we don't do good, the thing is that people have to realize is, and I've read a lot of, like, Ronnie Monstins and Carlos Quiris, I read for them a lot. We rely on giving the forward line a lot of freedom, and that's never going to change. That's just how Ollie plays. That's how he knows how to play, picking it up from Sir Alex Ferguson. So people's perception that United are going to change to play somehow like City or somehow like Chelsea's Tuchel, that's never going to happen. And not because they can't, it's because that's not how they think, So that's never going to change. That freedom, though, unfortunately, relies on rhythm. The amount of times that the coaches at Manchester United iterated that word, it's unbelievable. Like, it's the most important, like, gospel to them, rhythm. And this is, I think, why there is a saying that, or not a saying, but if you talk to a lot of Manchester United fans, they tell you we were conventionally not really good at the first half of the season anyway under Fergie. We were never like awesome the way we started every season. It's just we gelled during the later in the second half of the season. And I think that's what Ollie relies on. It relies on rhythm. So once everything clicks with these players and they realize how to play with each other, especially in the forward line, we look better. Like, there are many, many examples of that where everything just clicked and it looked like beautiful football, beautiful flowing football. And unfortunately, this goes like that. It's a rhythm thing. So days will be off, days will be very high, days will be off, days will be very high. Now, where I think there's still structure with Ollie is in the middle third and the back line. This is where he clearly implements a structure. It's there, no one can deny it. It's the effectiveness of how to play that, though, that's still in question. So people go in on Ollie on the build-up structure. I believe there's nothing wrong with the structure, but there's something wrong with the movement within the structure. So we use a 2-4 build-up, or sometimes when matches play, we use a 3-1 build-up, right? These two structures are not bad. It's not what Guardiola uses. Guardiola uses a 2-3 from, like, the defensive third. But there's nothing wrong with these two structures. The problem is when you, for example, you're playing Scott and Fred, and I'm not going on them so people don't attack me. They don't move. they're static. You know, certain games they do move and everything flows. Like I've watched so many games over and over again. For example, the Chelsea, the City away, the Liverpool away, the Liverpool in the FA Cup. So many games where Scott and Fred started moving in the right ways within that same setup, and the passing lanes all opened, and we cut through everybody. But the games where they don't, we look like we have no idea how to get out, and players get pressured, especially someone like Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Teams attack him specifically because his first touch and his comfortableness on the ball is weak. So Southampton did a good job on him 3 games ago. Aimed all our play down to Aaron Wan-Bissaka and attacked his second touch because they know his first touch is not that good. So is the structure bad? No. The movement within the structure, could it be improved? Yes. Will different personnel, especially in the pivots and the right back, improve us massively? Absolutely. So this is all my thinking, from defense to attack with Ollie. You know, attack's never going to change. It's going to be free. You know, so don't put your hopes up with that. But at the back in the middle third, we are structured. It's just we're not effective, or as effective as we could be. That's
certainly. Certainly, it's very hard to disagree with you at the best of times, Abdul, especially now. But Mark, I'll come to you just to round off on West Ham. Obviously, it was briefly mentioned it in Abdul's speech about how compact West Ham are, how they have a tendency to set up defensively against United. Is that a worry for you, given how in every game so far this season, other than maybe the Newcastle game, we've looked like we've struggled to break down low blocks? It feels like it's similar to last season. Is it a worry for you how good West Ham are defensively?
I think it's too early to tell, actually. But you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think Newcastle played a very low block and we managed to carve that open pretty well. And I do think that we've got the players in Jaden and Ronaldo to do that now. So that doesn't concern me too much. What I will say is West Ham tend to have a possession rate of about 51%, I think it is. And Abdul's absolutely right. They tend to sit back against us. So you'll see that United will have a lot of possession going forward. Now it's obviously down to us on how we progress that forward. And obviously it's a real shame that Antonio's out, but they do have some other key men in there, and they've got a similar sort of front line where they can interchange them quite a lot. And obviously Souček in the middle is a massive player for them, and I do think it's going to be won and lost in the middle of the park. And I wholeheartedly agree with Stu that Pogba needs to play there in order to dictate that midfield. Now, personally, for me, I would have had McTominay as well, but I don't think he's going to be available. And for that, I believe that Fred is probably the next best thing, in as much that we need a bit of energy in the midfield to nullify both Rice and Souček. You'll probably see, as I said, it can be a bit interchangeable, but with Antonio out, they don't really have a key danger man. And Jared Bowen hasn't had enough experience, and the new signing, Vlasic from Everton, has just come in. Again, has only played a small part of minutes so far. So it's not something that is necessarily going to gel together. You'll probably see Vlasic go in at number 10. You'll probably see Fornals go out to the right. And Ben Rama, obviously another great player that scored a couple of goals, playing on the left-hand side. So it's really about how our defenders cope. And this is probably the biggest test, I think, for United's backline with Varane and Maguire so far, in all honesty. It's nobody can obviously make it black and white and know who we're going to come up against. But I think the middle of the park, and as I said, I think that this is going to be the biggest test for the defence. So we'll see how they get on. But I am probably a little bit more confident than everybody else, actually. I think that with regards to Aaron Wan-Bissaka as well, if anybody is going to be able to sort of mollycoddle him and bring him out of that depths of despair, it's going to be Ollie, right? And I think you'll probably see him at right back. But yeah, I'm quietly confident. I think we'll be okay.
I certainly hope so. I certainly do. Well, I'll come to you, Stu. We'll switch to United now and how they line up. One person in particular I did want to mention, obviously, he's sort of topical at the minute, is Jesse Lingard. Obviously, he did make the mistake for young boys. It goes without saying. I'll bring this comment up. It's looking like he might get a new contract as well. I think Fabrizio Romano has tweeted that out while we've been on air. Listen, he did so well against West Ham. He'll know him almost inside out, given he was there for 6 months. Is it worth starting him on Saturday or Sunday? I can't quite remember what day we play. But is it worth starting him for his energy, his creativity, and just to sort of get him back into that confidence?
No, I wouldn't. I get your question, and I understand why people are looking at Lingard. But there's no room for sentiment in football, I'm afraid. You just have to get on with it. He's got to put it behind him, the kid. Well, he's not a kid now. He's 28, isn't he, this year or next year or something like that. So he's got to put that mistake behind him. It won't be his first mistake and it won't be his last. But Ollie's got to go in with a team that can offer more than what Jesse can offer, I'm afraid. I kind of think that when Sancho explodes, you'll see the team explode. That's, Sancho at the minute is going to be quite key to our real development over the season. And Abdel made quite an interesting point. I've been speaking a long time, and Abdel knows this. I've been speaking a long time about our transition through the middle. And I always talk about versatility. And we're not that versatile, unfortunately, with our midfield three, whoever they are. We're not that versatile. I know Charlie's a great fan of Matic, and he's a great player. But Charlie knows that I think Matic is too one-dimensional. He's all left foot. He'll turn with his left foot, whichever, and he's too one-dimensional for me. Fred just doesn't concentrate, and McTominay has 1 in 7 good games. So versatility is our real key. And this is why I go back. I'm not ringing a Donny bell or anything like that, but this is why I go back to about Donny. Donny is the most versatile player that we've probably got with in our midfield pool, so to speak. He's slightly more versatile than Pogba. He is more versatile than Bruno. And he offers something completely different. But at this point in time, you couldn't perhaps risk a singular Donny on his own against a team like Newcastle. But it's versatility that's hurting us more than anything. So Abdel's right about our build-up play and about our structure. It's perfectly fine. We just need to find that one missing piece, whoever it is, and whether you can find it within the club, great. Or if you've got to go and buy it, you've got to go and buy it. So going back to Jesse, is Jesse the answer? No. You've got to move on. Sometimes you just have to move on. And Jesse himself should be looking at it rather like Phil Neville did when he went across to Everton. Look, my time's up. I've got to move. These players don't seem to do that. Whatever the reason, I don't know whether, the coaches, the manager, the board are saying that you're indispensable to us. I don't really know. But we had a chance to sell Jesse in the summer. We didn't sell him. I don't think he's going to feature a huge amount this year. So talk of a new contract just for financial purposes is not good. One thing I noticed in football in the summer, there was 2 or 3 players that terminated their own contracts. Willian at Arsenal terminated it for no money. Other players have terminated Aurier at Spurs have terminated their contracts and they moved on because they want to play football. And there are players in our pool that need to consider that type of move, or the club needs to consider the axe, because you've got to develop. And unfortunately, when you've got a player like Lingard, and I said it with Brandon Williams, you've got a salary and a position that you're just blocking a hole. You need to unblock that hole and move him on. So for me, it would be a mistake. Let's see what he can produce this year. I could be made to eat my words at the end of the season, but unlikely. It's going to be one of those, I'm afraid. And I just think that Lingard, he should really take a long look at himself and make that decision. You need to make a mature decision in life on occasions. And Lingard's at that position and that point now. He needs to make a mature decision for his career or the club, or just have got to make that decision for him. I'd be more happier if Lingard made it himself.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll keep that in mind if he does sign a new contract, and we'll come to your thoughts first when you're devastated about it. But Charlie, I'll come to you. We're speaking of players that are out of confidence. I think potentially one player that is struggling with confidence a little bit is possibly Jaden Sancho. Now, obviously, I think at the start of the season, Cristiano Ronaldo and Mason Greenwood have made themselves undroppable, whereas I think that Jaden Sancho's just struggled to settle a little bit. So do you start him against West Ham, or do you think it's time for Martial to come back in on that left-hand side?
I actually think Jaden Sancho has been very, very good. And I'm a big advocate of simple football. I really am. And I don't mind that he's playing it safe. I really don't. At the moment, we've got Ronaldo, Greenwood and Bruno, who are all big risk takers in our team. I don't think it would do a huge deal of harm if we had Sancho, who it doesn't mean he has to, doesn't mean he have to get the ball, pass it backwards, get the ball, pass it sideways, but take one man on and then find a man. You don't need to take 3 or 4. That's not what football's all about. Goals and assists and all this rubbish. I couldn't care less. We score enough goals already. I'm not bothered about particularly scoring more goals. I just think I think the balance. I think Sancho's off a balance. I think against Newcastle. I don't know whether he's watching now, but Man United Analytics, a Twitter account, he put out a fantastic analysis of Sancho and the way Sancho's movement for the Ronaldo second goal. He actually created that space for Ronaldo to run in behind from Shaw's pass. So it's just those little things that you don't see with a goal or assist. We all watched Ronaldo score, and Ronaldo was the highlight of the Newcastle game. But actually, without Sancho's movements to drag the defender across, Ronaldo doesn't have that so much space to run in behind, and we never know. Ronaldo might not have scored that goal. So I think in the modern game, everybody gets a little bit too carried away with who scores and who gets assists rather than the actual full performance of a player. But yeah, Sancho for me so far, I've liked how he's played. Of course, he can improve. But I just want to touch on Matic as well. I actually thought Matic made a difference against young boys. I think Matic was. I think Mark said it very well at the match reaction after the Newcastle game, and I actually rewatched the Newcastle game, and I put Matic at a sort of 7 out of 10. But I actually rewatched the game, and I thought you could even push that to an 8 on the ball in particular, or even a 9 on the ball. Matic was fantastic on the ball. We all know Matic. We all know his deficiencies, but what you've got to do is you've got to put the right people around him to make sure those deficiencies are not sort of countered so much. And I think against Newcastle in particular, our fullbacks, particularly Wan-Bissaka and Shaw as well, a few times they got caught out of position. And I think Matic got the blame at times when it wasn't his fault. I think you've got to protect Matic. And I honestly think Matic should start on Sunday. I would play Matic and Pogba, probably because of Souček and Rice, the physicality in there. I think Matic and Pogba will be good. And I think Wan-Bissaka or Dalot. I think Sancho needs to start playing on the right because I don't think Greenwood is a future right winger. I know, Stu, I'm not a great fan of Greenwood at centre forward either, but that is the plan. I think that is the plan going forward, Greenwood at centre forward. So I don't understand. We've bought Sancho, and everybody said we bought Sancho to have a permanent right winger, and he's actually started a couple of games on the left so far. And I think Sancho needs to start on that right-hand side, whether it's with Wan-Bissaka or Dalot, for continuity. And I just think they need to get used to playing with each other because I think it doesn't help Wan-Bissaka if it's Greenwood or Sancho every week interchanging, because they are very, very different players. Sancho will tend to come short a little bit more for build-up play. Greenwood will look more as an inside forward role. And I just think, I think Martial is an option for Sunday. I think Martial is impressed away at Wolves and against Newcastle with his little dummy for the 4th goal. I do think Martial has impressed. So I would either play Matic and Pogba or Matic and Van der Beek. And I'd either play Pogba on the left, Sancho on the right, Bruno and Ronaldo, or I'd play Martial on the left, Sancho on the right, or Greenwood. You put Sancho on there, but I just think Sancho needs to play on the right. And I think Greenwood, for me, Greenwood still doesn't get in our best team for me, but that's just my personal opinion. But we could talk about options all we like, but we've got a lot of them anyway. Just
a couple of things on that, actually, in regards to Matic. I think I was thinking to myself at the beginning, we could potentially play Matic as the holding and then Donny van der Beek as well alongside him. However, I think in this instance, with what I mentioned earlier with Rice and Souček, I think it's probably going to be a little bit too fast paced for Matic. And this is why I wanted someone like Fred to potentially come in, or McTominay, in order to stop that from happening. And also as well, I think until Rashford's back, I don't think you're gonna see Sancho play on the right hand side. I think you'll see him more on the left and be able to shoehorn Greenwood in. And I think that's exactly what will happen this weekend. I think you'll see Greenwood on the right, Sancho on the left, and Ronaldo sitting up top. That's obviously happened in the last couple of games. Worked very well against Newcastle. Now, what I will say about Sancho is I absolutely agree with Charlie. I think he's actually been severely underrated and actually very, very good. And I think what Ronaldo has done by coming in and taking the limelight off of everybody is, and that's kind of gone unnoticed, is not giving Sancho too much of a platform to live up to. And what it means is he's able to just get on with what he's asked to do and get the numbers eventually from him. I don't think you're going to see an explosive Sancho until sort of the latter end of October, perhaps sort of middle of November. I think that will be really when he comes into form and starts getting goals and assists. But I actually think he's not off form at all. I think he's been very, very good. With regards to Aaron Wan-Bissaka as well, I think that he hasn't really changed. He's not got worse. He's not necessarily off form. I think that he just needs that cemented right winger in front of him. And consequently, until Sancho starts playing on the right-hand side and Rashford's back on the left, I don't think you're going to see that much more consistency and that much more from Aaron Wan-Bissaka going forward. But that said, I would still start him on the right-hand side. I think it's probably too early for Dalot to really come in and really give much from that right-hand side.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, Abdul, just to round us off then, United line up at the weekend. In your opinion, who has to start given the opposition?
It's a tough one. Well, I'll give you all the positions that I'm sure of at least. So De Gea, Shaw, Varane, Maguire, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and give Dalot the next week. Bruno, Cristiano most likely, whether I like it or not, and Sancho left, and I will try Martial. Sancho right, and I'll try Martial left, and see how that goes. Now I know there's a lot of changes, and that doesn't help, the chemistry. But let's try that and see how, because I expect them to sit back, especially without Antonio. So I want to see how that's gonna effectively stretch them, because Shaw does a great job down on the left-hand side with stretching oppositions, and with Martial cutting in, so he will fill that left half space. Sancho holds his width until his fullback comes in. So we'll see. I want to see how that plays out. I think it's a much better fit altogether than Greenwood, because Greenwood cuts in early and then he leaves Aaron Wan-Bissaka with a lot of space that he doesn't know what to do with, really, But Sancho, because he's played like that at Dortmund, obviously Hakimi is much better than Aaron Wan-Bissaka going forward. But he would wait for his fullback until he doesn't overlap and then cuts in instead of cutting in way too early. Now, the pivot options, this is where the whole headache comes in. But Fred has to start for his tenacity. And if we're going to put Martial, I would say Fred and Pogba. But that pivot gets bypassed way too easy, unfortunately for me. So I would say Fred and Matic, and Pogba sets this one out. Just because I want to try Martial with Sancho and Cristiano at the same time. If it wasn't for that, I would put Pogba left wing. And regarding what's two, and and Charlie were saying, there's this thing that I said before, like it was a tweet that I sent out a long time ago. On average, in any game, there is about 2,550 actions taken, and that includes throwings, corner kicks, everything, fouls and actions. And the actions that get highlighted, us being humans, are the ones that take our attention. Like we go like, whoa, wow, something like that. Like, oh, what a ball over the top, what an amazing ball, or something that you didn't expect to happen and then happens. And obviously the goals and assists. But there's so much that happens off the ball that has so much value, bigger value than a goal or an assist, that people don't notice. Like Charlie was saying, on how Sancho spread the pitch open wide just for Cristiano to have that enough space to receive Shaw's pass. And Sancho, all the buzz was around Cristiano, but Sancho's last few games, he's one of the only forwards that created the most shot creation actions for us. So passes that Sancho gives always result in a shot, always result in an attack. He was very neat, very the only thing that I think Sancho's trying to adapt to is the speed of the players closing him down. So before, he would dribble past one or two and we'd still have enough time to slip in a pass or a cut back. Now he's finding it a little bit more difficult because he's getting closed down very fast. And especially when he goes on the left-hand side, because he faces the issue of United being left side dominant. So everybody that faces United just cramps that area. So he faces that, when he plays on the left, he faces that issue. It's like, oh shit, there's a lot of people here, and then he wants to dribble, but there's not much space to dribble into. So I think he's the one that's going to take the most to integrate. But he just needs to know how Shaw plays when he switches to the left, and he needs to know how Aaron Wan-Bissaka plays when he plays on the right, and it will flow for him. It will flow for him. He's an exceptional player. So he just needs a bit more time to figure out this team, because we play completely different than Dortmund. He's not used to that. So Cristiano, as a striker, you just put him up top and he will score. It's not the same.
Can I just quickly jump in, because I'd like to say thanks, Abdel, because I talk about and Mark will tell you, player segments, pitch segments all the time in football. I talk about it all the time, and player responsibility for their segments on that pitch. And people look at me fucking blind, really? What are you talking about? And it's exactly what I'm discussing. When you talk about segmentation on a pitch, it's a little 2-3 yard walk to the left, a little 10-yard burst of run. All this is absolutely paramount in the development of any attack or anything that you do on a football pitch. And people, honestly, they look at me and they message me on Twitter as if I'm talking soft, but it's exactly right. What you're talking about there is exactly what it is. It's about identifying the segments and working within the parameters of where you should be at any one given time. So it's quite refreshing that that you mentioned that, Abdel.
Yeah, obviously, and I guess this is one of the things that people cry out for Oli for, because they want to see segmentation, they want to see everyone spaced out correctly and all that stuff. But like I said earlier, I don't think that would happen in an attacking sense. But before that, like middle third, defensive third, we are segmented correctly. But yeah, this is player responsibility. Player responsibility comes in such a big matter that, unfortunately, now it's not highlighted. Everything is highlighted on whether the manager does something or doesn't do something. And
I'll talk about it. James will tell you my favorite phrase is player intelligence.
Yeah, and
I use it a lot.
I've talked to so many coaches. Look, I played football, but I didn't play at the highest level, and I didn't play in a semi-level, not even semi-level. But I've talked to so many coaches in here, and they'll tell you themselves that people have the perception that the players out on the field follow the instruction 100% of the time. They don't.
Of course they don't. It's impossible.
Like, managers pull their hairs out because of players leaving the structure, or going off and doing something they're not supposed to do. Like, for example, and I've heard this, I know someone that not works at Manchester United, but knows people who work there, and they told me there was never one time that Oli and his coaches told Martial to drift to the left. They scream at him to stay in the box, but he doesn't, because that's how Martial plays. Ever since he was in the youth academy, he drifts to the left. That's his tendencies. So that's why, like, it's not we're excusing Oli. There's a lot of things that he could improve, but there's a huge percentage on player responsibilities that people just don't want to take account for.
They don't talk about it, Abdul, and I get why. I understand why, because, you know, people are talking, they'll say the buck stops with the manager, but when you're physically out there in the thick of a game of football, you have to react so quickly sometimes, and you're not always reacting for the right reasons. You might sometimes be reacting for the wrong reasons, but you're reacting, and your reactionary time is absolutely pivotal, especially at the highest level. You switch off for a split second. And Charlie made a good point, actually, about Sancho. And I read that, Charlie, that analytics. But there's a couple of points on that, though, is that Sancho's role in the team is to disrupt the left-back, to make sure the left-back is following him around. And the left-back is really there, or the full-back, so we'll just say full-back, to make sure that his winger or his wide player is in his vicinity. And you're absolutely right. And where Newcastle got it wrong, and Ronaldo was brilliant, as soon as they moved the fullback out of the way, the centre-half then should have been on it straight away, because it's the centre-half's role to then pick up Ronaldo. And, of course, that didn't happen. That was great for us. But things like that do get overlooked. And things like that fans don't want to discuss. They don't want to talk about it, because it's not Ronaldo leaping 10 foot in the air and scoring a header, or a worldie of a cross, or this or that. And Abdel's right as well, and Charlie's right. I respect your opinion, Charlie. I know we disagree on some things, but I respect that you understand football, and same as everybody on this panel. But I get wound up, and I really get wound up on Twitter by these so-called coaches who think they're coaches, but they never talk about the dirty side of the game. They never talk about the off-the-ball play and the importance of off-the-ball play, and the importance of positioning, the importance of communication, the importance of being able to actually pass it correctly. Making sure that you can put enough backspin on it, so if the ball goes over the defender's head, it lands directly in, where it's supposed to be. Little things like that they don't want to talk about. They're interested in assists. They're interested in goals. They're interested in stats, and I don't give a fuck about stats. I don't care about stats.
Another example is Pep Guardiola is the most control freak manager out there. He wants to control every single thing in a game. When he played the Champions League against PSG, right there, when they played them away, PSG, the first 25 minutes were in control of the game, and they could have ripped Man City apart on the counter-attack. And that was because of Rodri. Pep was like, they brought it in segments, not in the camera. Like, they would put a picture on him and then move quickly and then put a picture on him. Pep was hitting his head, and he was telling Rodri in Spanish. And I speak Spanish fluently, so I understood what he said. And he was telling him to return back to his position. He's telling him, you're moving way too much forward, and he didn't want him to move too much forward. And he was going crazy. And you guys know how Pep acts on the side pitch, like a lunatic. And that's like one of the indications of how players don't usually do what the managers tell them to do, and managers have to constantly remind them, don't do this, don't do that, return back to your position, return back to that position. And unfortunately, because Oli is not acting like a lunatic on the side pitch, people think that he doesn't, ask his players to do certain things, but he does. This is not the thing that I would criticize Oli on. Other things I would, but the point is, players don't listen to coaches all the time.
No, absolutely. I was terrible for it.
Script a lot of the times.
Yeah, I was terrible for it when I played. I was awful for it, Abdel. But it's reaction.
I didn't know you played football.
Do you know, on the odd occasion when I was a youngster, I might have pulled on the boots now and again and a shirt. But no, it's true, and people don't discuss that fact that. There is a game plan, there is a structure, etc., etc. But then it really is up to the players to deliver on that, and a lot of the time they don't, you know. But if you don't do that, by the way, these players have then got to find a way of winning that match. You know, if you're not following to the letter of the law what the coach has set out, you've then got to find a way during that game to win that match. And unfortunately, that's player intelligence.
Yeah, that's sort of why I like Matic, Van der Beek, Martial. I think Martial gets. I don't understand it. I don't know whether it's because he doesn't look like he's doing much work on the pitch, but this idea that he's disinterested, I just don't buy into. I really, really don't. This is why I think Martial against Wolves, when he came on, he made a huge difference holding the ball up. Yeah. And then against Ollie actually gave him a lot of credit, didn't he? He said actually against Newcastle that was Martial's assist because he let it run through his legs to Lingard, who fantastically turned and put it into the corner. And things like that, people don't see things like that, and that's the problem.
Did you see Van der Beek's run on that, by the way?
Yeah, Van der Beek as well.
Absolutely brilliant, his run. Perfect.
I've seen comments saying like Van der Beek, he's not good enough for Man United and all this. Like just because he hasn't had a real chance of running the side, like this is why I like still Juan Mata in the cup matches, for example, on Wednesday against West Ham. He can do a fantastic job for us, you know, because of the intelligence. He might not. It's the same with Matic. Matic hasn't. We know Matic can't play every week, but we know Matic is our only out and out holding midfield player. And we also know Matic is probably our most smart midfield player and the one that uses the ball the best and the most accurately in terms of his passing. So it's not always about running 50 yards, as Stu said. It's about your positional play. But people don't notice this. You know, I went to Old Trafford. You know, big flex. Look at me. I went to Old Trafford for the Newcastle game. And just watching Matic, I actually watched him off the ball and things. Just the way he anticipates danger. He might not be the quickest, but he anticipates the danger. Not always, of course, as Stu said, because Matic made that mistake, I think, once on Saint-Maximin where he went in too early. Well, obviously, we can say that now, and he got ran past. But the thing is with Matic, he very, very rarely gets caught out of position, and he's very, very smart. So what I say to people is, people say, oh, Matic, he's too slow and all this. Well, I actually say when Matic plays, we don't have to run back to our own goal as much because he uses the ball better than McTominay and Fred or so do. So it's just looking at it the other way. It's, I think, of course, an engine is important in football, and McTominay in particular, fantastic. McTominay's engine is fantastic, and he has got some technical ability. But I do think what Stu said about that player intelligence, I think players like Matic, Van der Beek, Martial, Mata are key examples of that.
Certainly. I never quite know when to come in. I never know who's going to talk next. But yeah, that's why I love hosting these shows.
It's good when you got like-minded people, though, isn't it, on the show? I always think it flows very fluid, and everybody's got a really good knowledge of the game and a really good knowledge of the game, and people can criticise as much as they like, laugh at us or whatever. I mean, I got beaten up big time on Twitter for I blamed. I thought Varane was slightly at fault for the Saint-Maximin goal, and I tried to qualify it, but these idiots don't get it. And all I said was, if you look at where, and I know the mistake was Shaw and Maguire, I get all of that, but just because the mistake started there, it doesn't have to end in a goal, And all I said was, and if you remember, Varane kind of rushed at Saint-Maximin a little bit. And if he'd actually taken 2 or 3 steps slightly away from Saint-Maximin, he would have made Saint-Maximin make a choice. Either shoot, and then you've got to back your goalkeeper, or play it to, can't remember the guy's name now, the right back eventually scored.
Macchio.
But Macchio would have been 2 yards or 3 yards further to the byline. By the time the ball
it's a very difficult situation because it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't, especially in a 2v1 because they expose.
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah, I won't be overly critical. Yes, he could have done slightly better, but in that situation, you can't be overly critical of Varane. I just had one small remark. If there's something that I would be heavily critical of this United team is, and I think if it got improved, we'll look a lot more solid than we are. We'll control a lot of more games, is defensive transitions.
Yeah.
If we fix our defensive transition when teams counterattack us, we'll be a lot solid as a team than we are. We can waste the entire 90 minutes figuring out how to break them. As long as we're solid in the defensive transition, I wouldn't worry about United. They could probably win the league. But that issue needs to get fixed. That's all I'm going to say.
Anyone else? Any more for any more?
We could be here till 1 a.m., couldn't we, talking about this?
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant.
Exactly. Well, we'll end the show there anyway. I think that's a good place to end it on. A nice positive note of how we can improve. That's what we like to have on this channel. Positivity and improvement. But yeah, it's brilliant to talk to you four again, as it always is. Really enjoy hosting these shows and listening to these discussions. Massive thank you as well to everyone who tuned in, everyone who got involved in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Stay tuned for Timeline Talk tomorrow. It should be a really good episode. We're going to go more into detail about the coaching and that sort of stuff. So it's probably not your sort of show, Stu. I'd stay away from that.
What was that? Sorry.
Nothing. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
I was reading the comments. I can't do both. I'm getting old.
Don't say pivot.
Don't say pivot. Stu, you don't look a day over 30. What are you on about?
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, I wish I was 30 again.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, listen, I think the show's run its course. I think that's fair to say. I'm really looking for a way to end this now. So, Stu, just keep your mouth shut for 5 minutes. Yeah. Thank you to my guests. Thank you to the listeners and watchers. Stay tuned for tomorrow. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.